Okay, so we're gonna make a login form. We're recording, so anybody wants to go on YouTube or whatever, just speak up. All right, so all I've done here is I've just done a normal create React app, opened up VS Code, and I've started the NPM server. And I'm not gonna go through and modify anything like the last sprint that I did. I'm just going to go in and work with the basic React page. And first we're going to go through and get rid of everything that we don't need in app.js. So pretty much the header. And we're going to get rid of the CSS as well, because why not? And we should just be with a nice blank page, and we're just going to call this like a home page. So we have something rendering. We know we haven't broken anything. And so what you might have is just some very basic elements, you know, like a, no, actually I'm going to rename this to JSX file so that I can use some linters here. So if I want to put in a header and a nav, I can do a header and a nav. And we might have like, you know, anchor tags for, you know, login, right? We might have another anchor tag for register. We'll do another one for the users. And then we'll do another one for and again, this is not designed to be secure by any means. I'm literally making it so I can print out a list of users. So it's not designed to be anything remotely secure. If you'll notice, I haven't done anything with React Router. I'm just trying to design the web page as best I can, and you know, we'll call this I don't know. Yeah, so totally not secure login stuff, and we'll make this an H1, and I'll just move that into the H1. So like that. So this is totally not secure login stuff. Not designed for security at all. We're going to cover that next unit. But this will give us at least some sort of a login flow. Like you know, I can try to go to login, register, users, first user, and you can kind of see that it goes to these different paths, right? So this one's going to a route of users, and then first user, we've got a space in there, so it's got a %20. So let's see if we can change this so that it's users/0. So we'll go to first user. So this is going to go to users/0. Users is just users. Let's go to, let's see, that's not right. I think I just started doing things weird. So users, register, login, users/0, and then yeah, see, it's messed up, but we haven't started doing any logins or anything else. So these aren't links yet. There's no React router. It's just kind of a general idea of what we want to do. Since we kind of have like just a general page that does nothing, let's go ahead and start installing things like React router. So I'm gonna stop the server, and if I just Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever you prefer, and I type npm, and then the package that we want, which is React Router DOM, I can actually search on this. And you'll notice that it says npm.js package React Router DOM. So I can click on that. And this is the, if you type like npm install React Router DOM, this is basically what it's going to be installing. So npm I React Router DOM, that's fine. The latest version, I know that they've been working on getting some backwards compatibility, but I haven't really dug into it that deep. So I'm going to go back to the latest 5. Release, because that's what's currently being used in the industry. And so if I wanted to install React Router 5.3.3, I can specify it by doing npm install and then just do an at 5.3.3. So if I go into our package.json, you're going to notice that we have React Router DOM, and it's caret 5.3.3. So if they come out with a newer version of 5.3.3 and you update that package, it will go to something newer than 5.3.3, but not 6.
Can I ask a question? I kind of wanted to ask earlier, but
yeah, go ahead.
So why did you rename it to app.jsx? Is that just like the React?
Yeah, so app.jsx allows me to do fancy things like, let's say, oops, I wanted to put in like a main tag. You notice all I need to do is type in main and then tab, and it gave me main, or say like footer.
Okay.
So that's the main reason why I'm doing
just quicker.
It makes it so that I don't have to go
right
like that. And you know, it's just faster. You'll also notice that I use a lot more semantics than other people do. Everybody just thinks everything should be a div. I don't. But yeah, there are reasons to use divs. I just try to avoid it as much as humanly possible. But this isn't really going to be like a super stylish, you know, we're going to make the label move or whatever outside of, you know, there's no position or any of that we're going to use. You can look up CSS tricks for that if you'd like. Yeah, there's actually a really great YouTube channel called Online Tutorials. Yeah, he's got like thousands of, you know, how to make forms and stuff look pretty. But you know, we can spend hours doing that if you'd like, or we can learn what's on the test. Let's see, what else do I have? Something is, oh, it's just a change had been made. So
what was the YouTube channel called?
Online Tutorials.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, he's got like all these CSS only animated backgrounds and stuff like that. So yeah, it's channel whatever that is. But yeah, he's got 726,000 subscribers, and pretty much anything that I've ever seen on his channel is actually pretty quality. You know, so I just look in his channel for form. You know, responsive sliding login and registration form, all this other stuff. They've got all kinds of neat stuff. Contact us form, classomorphic, you know, all of these other little things. So if you want to dig deep into the into the CSS, you can, and it works the exact same way that you would in a regular web page. You just link in your CSS file, like like this. So import your CSS file. Pretty simple. Okay, so getting back to React Router. So what we need to do is we need to have a provider. So if you ever see something where it's wrapping app like this React strict mode, this is what they call a provider. So React strict mode does magic things to app. I personally don't care for any of them right at the moment because we're not going to really be using them. But I'm just going to leave it in there just for simplicity's sake. What we're probably more interested in doing in this is making it so that we can use React Router inside of app. So in order for us to be able to use React Router, we have to tell app that, or we have to look for changes inside of app that deal with the router. So let me go by example more than anything else. We're going to need to import our router. And there's two routers that React Router has, is a hash router and a browser router. So we're more interested in using the browser router. And we're going to want to make this another provider inside of React strict mode. So we're just going to do, yeah, that backfired. And I'm going to move my app inside of the router. So whenever you have an opening and closing tag, this app is now a child of your router. So router is able to see anything that's going on inside of app and route, for lack of a better word. So the idea is if I go to, you know, like say, login. Right now, I just clicked on login and it says, oh no, site can't be reached. So obviously we've messed something up somewhere, right? Because used to it would just try to go there and it would say, hey, totally not secure site. So by us routing, putting this router around here, it is now watching for any changes up here on your bar. So like if I go to users, for an example, it's going to error out now, where before it wasn't. See, site cannot be reached. So it is looking for a change inside of app on this page. So you go ahead and save that. Oh wait, we've already got it. We're not even running. Geez, I might be wrong. Let's see. Wait for that to fire up. This might still work. Who knows? Yeah. So there we go. Okay, so it still works. And then I think I want to put in another one in here for like home, right? Here we go. And we're just going to make this so that it goes to slash. So we might do slash login, slash register, slash users, something like that. So if I refresh and I look at home, it just goes here. If I go to first user, it goes to users 0. Home just goes back, users, register, login, right? So if I'm wanting to switch to a different route, I'm going to need to do a switch statement and a route. So if you'll notice the difference here, this one is a router. This is a route. Do not confuse the two. Don't ask how I know. Oh, sorry, not as. Route. So if I go down here and notice we haven't started doing links or anything else. We just have just regular normal anchor tags. So if I do a switch, and a route, and say I want to do a route to users, and I do like a paragraph tag, and we do, oops, nope, not trying to do that. Users. You'll notice this now says users here, but if I have an exact path, yeah, I think I've messed something up already. Let me see here. Why I always have notes somewhere. Oh, it's path, not two. Two is the link. I'm losing my mind. All right. Okay, so if I go to like home, there's nothing, login, there's nothing, register, there's nothing, users. Ooh, there's a user right there. Or first user. Ooh, well, notice how that's users 0. And if I click back on users, it's no longer going to users 0 like what it was before. Because remember, if I went to first user and then back to users, it was doing users 0. That's because it's actually using the router. So let me inspect for a second. And we're just going to put in a console log in here because I always like to show a little bit of life cycle in here. So this is, I'm just going to say rendered app in here. So let's refresh this. So this is rendering the app twice. We're on users. If I go to home, you'll notice that it refreshed the page. Login, it refreshed the page. Register, refresh the page. This thing, refresh the page. So if I'm refreshing the page, imagine having to reload Facebook every time you hit enter or every time you clicked on a friend's post. It would take forever for you to do anything. So this is kind of one of these technologies where what we want to do is we want to make it so that when I click on login, it doesn't have to refresh the whole page. It just gives me something different on the page. So that's where link comes in. So we're using link to figure out what's in these routes here and just change what's in these routes. So if I did, like let's select all of these symbols, and we rename these as link with a capital L. And we change our href to a 2. Right? I always forget how to, come on now. I have another computer that usually does all of them for me. Whatever. I forgot the hotkey in Windows. Yep, it's that one. There we go. Close enough. So we're going to replace all of these as 2. So we've replaced all of our anchor tags with a link. So now let's refresh. And right now we're at the home page because it's just localhost 3000. If I click on login, register, users, first user, if you notice, it's not having to re-render this app at all. Let's put some more routes in so that we can see all of the different changes. So we've got home, login, register, users, and first user. So this is going to be users, and we'll just say :ID. That might be in the wrong order. This one is going to be register. This one's going to be login. This one's just going to be home. Let's rename these home.
Don't forget to take it off of exact.
Oh, we can leave it on exact on these.
With the ID?
Yeah. Why not?
Doesn't it have to be string interpolation then?
No, it doesn't have to.
Oh.
Yeah, that happens on the component side when we start writing components.
Okay.
Because we're going to be using useParams to get that.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll just call this one first user. So we'll go ahead and save this. We're on first user's path, home, login, register, users, first user. You go and refresh. Notice how we just have the app was rendered, but it's no longer refreshing the whole page when I click on these. It's just going to the new path as fast as I can click on them. So that's where the main power of React Router is that you're not having to refresh this entire page. Like imagine, again, go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. If you uploaded a photo, you had to refresh all of Instagram. That would be horrible. Nobody would do it. So one of the other niceties here is that we can do other things, like start making these into different components and just put the component here. It should work exactly the way that we want. I'm gonna move this back a little bit. There we go. No, that didn't work. Trying to make this look pretty and I'm messing it up. There we go. So I'm just going to leave the home so we know that we're at home. The login, that's going to be its own component. Register, that's going to be its own component. But it could technically be it could be the same component as login. We just pass in a different parameter to let it know that it's a register instead of a login. Who knows? But that way we don't have to make two forms, right? If they're effectively identical. And then like a users and then say like a first user. So on the first user, if I want to, if I'm wanting to have a list of people, who wants to guess if I'm going to be using an array with objects or just an object? Come off mute.
An array with objects?
Yeah, it's going to be an array with objects. So the reason why we want to have an array of objects is that if we have one person is an object. I have a name, I have a birth date, I have a password, I have an email address, a phone number, etc. Right? Maybe more than one phone number, but I have those type of things. Maybe more than one email address. But if I start putting in, say like Andrew into this same database, I'm going to have more than one person. I might even have more than one person with more than one email, or the same person with more than one email, with more than one account. Everybody's talking about spam bots. That's how they work, right? So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to want to hold that state where every one of these routes can see it. So login is going to need to look at it because we're going to want to figure out if that person is already registered. Same thing with register. Users, we're going to get a list of users. And if I wanted to look at my first user, which is ID 0, then I probably want to have the first user in there. So that's where we start putting in our state. So it's as close to where everything can see it as needed. Next unit, we'll go into Redux and context, and that rule doesn't technically apply anymore, but it sort of does with air quotes. You'll see. So we're going to do, we're going to use useState. From React. And I'm just going to leave that console log up there for right now.
Do we not need to import React from React because it's app.jsx, or is that?
So like because version like 17 stopped really needing it, you don't really have to, but you can import React from React and then add in like useState. So like if I want to do React comma useState, you could do that.
Okay. Another question. Currently, like if you click on user and then, or users and then first user and then go back to users, it adds another /users behind users. Is that normal?
Well, if you have this wrapped in a router and you have down here your switch with routes, it shouldn't be doing that.
Can you try it on yours?
Yeah. So like if I go to users, it goes
then,
to users, then first user goes to user 0. And if I go back to users, used to what it would do is would do users / first user, which is users. So it'd be like,
well, yeah, that's what mine is doing. And I've just been following the code, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out later.
If yours is doing that, then that means that your React router is either not working or you haven't saved a file or something. But this right here is your first step into making that work, is to wrap that in a router. Once you've wrapped that in a router, I'm pretty sure that's where it stops doing it. And definitely it shouldn't be doing it if you have a switch with a route in it. So like say a home route, or heck, even a user route. That's where we started, was a user's route. So I would just make sure you have everything saved, and I would refresh the page if it's still doing weird things.
All right.
Okay, so going back to state. So use state as a function, right? We're going to be passing in an array. So what does useState return? So this is getting into destructuring. So what you'll notice is we'll use these square brackets here instead of just saying, I don't know, my state equals useState, right? So if we've got this this my state useState thing, right? I can save this, it doesn't crash or anything. And I can console log my state. And if I go inside of here, you'll notice that useState is whatever's being returned from useState is being saved in a variable named myState. And in myState, it is an array of two things. The first one is our getter. The second one is a function with a bunch of stuff in it. And that's our setter. So our getter is element 0 and our setter is element 1. So we could actually do something like do element 0 at the end of this, And whatever is in the 0th element of use state, whatever comes back, because use state is just returning an array, is going to be just an array here, right? So that's not really an efficient way of doing things. So a lot of the times what you'll notice is we're going to be wrapping this in an array here. So what this is doing is element 0, which is our first array element, is going to turn into my state. So if I save this, keep clicking on things, we'll refresh. You'll notice that it's just an array. There's nothing special. And if we want to go and do the first element, we just do like set my state, right? So we're calling this my state and set my state. So we'll do. So this is destructuring. So we're just taking something that we know is an array, and we're picking off and naming those variables. So my state is equal to use state element 0. Set my state is equal to use state element 1. I know somebody was asking about destructuring earlier, so that's the explanation. So
That
if
makes
I
it clear. That makes it very clear. Thank you.
okay, and you'll notice we have an array and then a prototype array 0 function blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to read all that, so I'm just going to get rid of this console log. So and it's the same way whenever you're dealing with like destructuring props. Like let's just imagine that we had passed in props from index. So we're just going to have props, and we're going to add in, I don't know, Brian is equal to proper guy, right? So if I just console log props here, so we'll do not console. If I just console log props, you'll notice that all props is just it's just an object, right? And I've got a key named Brian and a value named proper guy. So same thing here. I've got a key named Brian and a value named proper guy. It's just now it's in like this, object looking thing like that, right? So all props are is an object with key value pairs in it, whatever you pass down. So this is your name. I can call this Barbie as a proper doll. There we go. And it's props, right? Bad joke. So if that's saved, you can see now it's Barbie. Somebody said something.
Oh, I said it'll make me remember it with the proper.
Yes. So proper. Yes. So so it's the same thing. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but since we know it's an object, we just go curly brackets. And the difference is with this here, you can name it whatever you want, like my state, set my state, because this is in the 0th element and this is in the first element. And if there was 4, 5, 6 things passed here, which there aren't, you would just, you could add more things in there. But in this case, we've got this object here, so let's do Barbie. We're going to equal this to props. So now if I console log Barbie, you're going to notice that it's a prop or doll, right? So all we're doing is we're just destructuring what's already inside of the props object by naming what's inside of that props. So if you already know that you have a key named Barbie, you're now naming that variable as a constant Barbie And it's the exact same thing as if we did like props.barbie, equals Barbie, like that. There's literally no difference. The difference is being able to do multiple things. So like if we wrap this again and we did say like Brian, and we'll do Brian here. So if I save this, it's just going to be undefined for me. So it's proper doll and undefined because there isn't a prop here named Brian. So right. I guess we technically could have done in, I guess, but whatever. So now you can see it's what's being passed into props is Brian and Barbie, and it's just an object. It's got key value pairs and it's comma separated and everything that you would expect from an object. And then this one here is Barbie, and that's Brian. So, and it's being passed from whatever the parent is. So in this case, it's it's React's index. So you can pass whatever you want in there. And if you get rid of it, it's not exactly going to break anything because it's just undefined. It's undefined. There is no Brian, there is no Barbie to destructure. The areas where it will break is if you needed that for something and you're rendering, in which case it's going to explode and make people cry. Yeah, so there are no props. I didn't pass anything. So we're going to get into that further here in a little bit anyway. So for now, we just have rendered app. We have a little bit of state. Inside of this array, let's go ahead and start building out some of our structure. So I can imagine a login form will have something along the lines of an email, right? And we're just going to put me in there. So I always forget what my email is. One moment. Yeah, it is Brian dot. I don't ever email myself, so yeah, there we go. I got it right. First time without looking at all. Didn't have to look at my email. No, I had to seriously look at my email. Maybe maybe a name. We'll do first. Brian. Last name. And then a password. Don't steal the, right? And I don't know, maybe some sort of a checkbox for terms, true, something like that. So this might be something that would come from a form. Say we've got a checkbox that say you've got terms and conditions. We've got a password with don't steal me, first name and a last name and an email. So all of those are probably a good idea. There's probably going to be some sort of an ID of a string, something like that, right? So I think that probably we're just going to do an ID of 0 for right now. Why not? Oh, and I need a comma because this will get into that first user thing. So we have some state here. We have no components really. I don't really feel like writing this all in app. That just seems like a mess. So let's go to our source folder and we're going to make components. I don't care if it's upper or lowercase, pick it, don't change it. Biggest reason why you don't want to change it, bad things. just if it's uppercase, leave it uppercase. If it's lowercase, leave it lowercase, especially if you've already committed it to GitHub or whatever, or even your local machine. If it's been added, it just messes things up. Components. So we probably want a login component. We're probably going to want a register. No, that wants to be up here. Move. We're going to want users. And we're probably going to want an individual user, right? So let's start with users. We're just going to close out all these other ones for right now. So I'm going to start with a new variable name called users, since that's the name of the file. We're going to set this equal to a new arrow function. Does nothing. And we're going to I can type today. We're going to export it. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to return, we'll say a section with say, I don't know. Actually, no. Yeah, we do want a section. Okay. We're going to return a section, and we're going to have like a h2 of users. And we're going to pass in a little bit of props. And we're going to console log our props just to see what's in it. So if I save this and we open up our app again, what I can do is I can import this, or import our users. So import.
Question. Is making that object in your use state, is that like setting your initial like values?
Yeah, this is like, we're guaranteed to have a user ID 0.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing.
Can you leave those blank?
Yeah, you could, but it's probably not a good idea because this would be, if you were getting it from a database, you would leave it blank. But since we don't have a database and I don't feel like doing Unit 4 stuff for most of the night, I'm just going to be doing this.
Okay, for sure.
So just imagine that this is already done like an Axios get on a database, and this is the only record that's in the database.
Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, and then so we've got this import users from component users. Let's go ahead and replace our users p tag here with users, and actually we can just do users like that. Okay, so now we have an H2 of users. If I inspect this, you can kind of see that inside of main we have section users, and if I go to like if I just select home, you'll notice all it did was update main and the p tag, login, register. There's users. The users has that section with users in it. So it's a little faster than refreshing the entire page, especially when you start getting into some really large stuff. I'm going to refresh the page to get that down to normal size. So here, these are the props that we're passing down. Basically nothing. It's just an empty array. So a lot of the times, if you're passing state, you're probably going to want to pass your my state or your set my state or both. In users, we're only interested in viewing. We're not interested in adding anything. So all we need to do is just look at the data that's there. So if I pass in my state, so this my state is what I'm calling it for props.mystate. On this side, it's what's defined up here. So I save this and I start looking at this. It'll notice that it's called mystate and it's an array of one item. And inside of this one item, it's brianhaig@bloomtech.com. So let's render that out because, well, yeah, that's definitely what we learned last week. I'm going to switch these places because it's a little confusing. So if we want to map over that array, what we're going to want to do is we're going to need to break out of JSX mode first off. So we're going to have curly brackets for that. And we're going to do something like, what was it, mystate? Yeah, mystate. So we're going to probably destructure mystate a bit, and we're going to equal this to props. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to map over mystate because it's an array, we can map over it. So we're going to do mystate.map. Inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to grab a, I don't know, a user, I guess sounds pretty generic for a single person. And we'll do, say, oh, yeah, I don't want to do this with curly brackets. I want to do this with parentheses because we're in JSX mode, not JavaScript mode. And let's do...
Wait, quick question. When
Yeah.
you say we're in JSX mode, not JavaScript, is that because of the file user.jsx? Because
nope.
in general,
Nope.
we use brackets.
No, so when I switched from here, like if you notice this return statement is using parentheses.
Yeah.
Parentheses denotes that it's in JSX. When you see curly brackets, it says that we're back into JavaScript. So otherwise, if I just did mystate.map, it would be printing out mystate.map out over here. But because I put it in curly brackets, it's actually evaluating this as a JavaScript statement. But again, with this, because this is a function, this function is default returning JSX. I'm just doing parentheses, this pink parentheses here is saying that I'm back into JSX mode. So I could just do, say, an article like that and say user, for an example. So you can see that we have a user here. So mystate is being mapped and it is printing out an article with the word user in it. If I wanted to put something else in here, you would use like curly brackets to break back out and do, say, user dot first name, and then it would output Brian.
Okay.
So switching back and forth between JavaScript and JSX is just a matter of knowing which context you're in, which parentheses or curly bracket that you need to be in whenever you're rendering a return. So we're going to do an H3 here, I guess. User first name. I think this would probably be better if we did string interpolation. So we're going to do user first name, and I want a space between my first name and last name. So we're going to do user dot. That was capital N. Yeah, so Brian Haig. We're going to do a paragraph tag, and then just do. Actually, I can just do user dot email. So there we go. So we've got Brian Haig and Brian Haig at Bloom Tech. So this is now looping over the, it's looping over this array, my state, that's coming from app and being passed down through here. And then from here, we're destructuring it. So my state becomes a new variable that's in the scope of this file, or this function here, users function. From there, we are mapping over it because it's an array. And each one of the objects inside of the array is going to turn into an article with an H3 and a paragraph with their email. So what if I were to just like add somebody else in here? So we're going to do ID 1. Email is somebody I used to know that used to work at a different company, but whatever, he doesn't work there anymore. The company doesn't even exist. Oh, sorry, not Brian. Was actually his password at one point. Don't ask how I know that either. Okay, something like that. So now we've got two objects that are what we would consider the same shape of data. So we know that this one has an ID, this one has an ID, this one has an email, this one has an email, etc. So we're keeping that same theme of the types of keys and the types of values. And that consistency is very worth it. So when I save it, now we've got Joseph Palmer at b.com and Brian Haig at bloomtech.com, kind of like the user form thing that you guys were doing before. Same basic idea. But we still haven't made a form. So let's go ahead and just make a quick register form so we can put in these a little bit more easily. So again, we need to make a new variable, register. We're going to set this to a function. We're going to return some JSX, so parentheses, and we're just going to have this as a section that says, and the last thing we need to do is export it. Okay, so we have register, export default register. Inside of app, we're going to import register from same folder, components register. And down here, we're going to want to replace register. Like that. So register, we probably do want to have some props being passed down because we're going to be trying to add something to this array here. So I'm just going to pass down my state and set my state. You could also do something in here for something that would modify, my state, like add, maybe make a function here like const add to my state, something like that. And you would just have it where something is being passed in, like, I don't know, new person, right? And all this would do is we would take set my state here. And remember, anytime that you set a state, anytime that you use one of these set states, it's going to be overwriting everything in my state. So you want to try to copy everything that you can. So the first thing you want to do is, you know that it's an array, so you need to make sure it's an array. Second thing, you want to copy everything that was in there, which is ... my state. So we're spreading my state inside of that array. And then we want to add in whoever the new person is, like that. So now all I need to do is pass this add to my state down as state. So we've got to register. Mute my phone, it's dinging like crazy. 7 o'clock, people. All right, go ahead.
To get water.
Say that one more time.
I think we could take a 2-minute break to go grab water.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll meet back here. We want to say about 5 minutes, so 7:08 my time, whatever time it is for you guys.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I figured out what was going on with my like user stuff where the URL tag was like adding on users. It was in my links. I didn't have the backslashes in front of each name or in front of each two.
Okay, yeah, it needed the slash.
Right.
Yeah, because so like this one right here is your this one right here is your root. Anytime you just see a regular slash, we call it root. Same thing like if let me open up another git bash. So like if you notice on my git bash how it has that slash right there, that's root. So if I do pwd, it says that I'm at my root. And if I do like ls, it's got like a bunch of stuff nobody knows what to do with. Like if I cd to the C drive, then you can see my C drive. And I can cd ... back down to whatever. Or I can cd into tilde, which is my home drive. But either way, anytime you just see a bare slash, it basically just means you're at the root of whatever you're at. So in this case, that would be like home. Because it would be like if you had a slash there.
Yeah. I also had a question about, and it's a CSS, like I was just trying to just do some basic modifications so it didn't hurt my eyes looking at it. You can't, you not use like link in CSS?
Well, so like let's inspect what a link is. So let's go over here to the first user here.
So it'd have to be an A tag.
Yep. So you need to look at what the browser sees it as, not what it looks like inside of here. Because like remember when you did like styled components, you did like styled component div, styled component.div equals whatever. So it actually knows that it's a div, but you could have called it anything you wanted. You could have called it I don't know, Ford prefect if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be called a div.
Okay.
So, but it'll render out as a div. So if you wanted to do more styling inside of a CSS on a styled component, don't ask me how or why you would want to do that. You could.
Can you add class names to the
Yeah.
links and switches and routes and all that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's this other really cool one called we'll do a data style link for an example. And I'm just going to copy this down. Like you've got a data style link here.
Uh-huh.
So if I guess let me import app.css. My finger is in the wrong place. We'll go ahead and put that in here. This is not what I want. I don't want it centered. So we're going to just kind of get rid of all of this. And if you do CSS data attribute, they have all these, how-tos and things like that. So your syntax would be like, data size, data food, data prefix, whatever. Data name, you can call them anything you want really, but this is like the Konami code of CSS. So what you do is you just do square brackets, and when you're accessing them in CSS with that square bracket, you can just do whatever the name of that attribute was that you added in. In this case, what was it? No, it's down here. So data style link. So if we do copy and put that into here inside of the square brackets, you can now do like something like that. And if we go into here, now I've got data, everything that had a data style link is now being modified from this. We're going to use that same basic selector pattern with other things as well, but it's not going to be data style.
How do rems work with margins? I thought that was for like font.
A rem is just a measurement. So like if I inspect this first user here and I go to say, oh, it's down here. I'm like, where did it go? And if I go into like, you can see the computed margin right here.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that this margin over here has 16 pixels. 16 pixels is just one rem.
Okay, well, and that'll change based on like our CSS reset and whatnot.
Whatever your root font size is. So if your root font got changed in HTML, then it's going to be whatever that size is.
Gotcha.
Taking a drink of water. Okay, everybody back?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So while everybody was gone, I was showing off data style link. So the other thing you might see, this is a very common pattern. This is the Konami code of testing utilities. So what if somebody had like a class or something, like a class of link or something, and then somebody decided to get fancy and they were like, okay, well, I'm going to rename this, header nav link on app, and that's the name of the class name. And it used to be called link, right? Now your tests are failing because somebody changed style. So in general, we try not to put our styling selectors and our testing selectors together. So what you might see is a data test ID, and these will be unique. So this one might be, home. I'm not supposed to be home, but whatever. It's already starting to look really ugly now. Right, so this one is actually supposed to be login. This one is supposed to be register. And since this is a fairly simple page, this is going to be, and then this is going to be like, you know, very simple names. So first user, something like that, or first. I usually like to use camel case in that case. So it doesn't break anything. If you go and inspect it, like this first user here, you'll notice that it has, you know, data style of link, a data test ID of first user, href is user 0, the whole works, right? If I try to select this inside of you know, like a sci.get, you know, and this would be inside of a test file, not inside of the not inside of the CSS, but you might have like a sci.get, and then you might have you know, data test ID, and then you might have equals double quote home, right? So this would be how you would be able to get, and you would have the square brackets around that. Yep. So this would allow you to select a data test ID in Cypress. And we're going to cover that a little bit more when we start testing this, because it won't take long to do testing. Yeah, that's the sidebar, way sidebar from where we should be. So where we were at before is we were making this register, and we've got register where it's showing up here. And if we do, like, say, a form, and no, I don't need an HTML4 for that either. I need to change these shortcuts on this one. With an input, our label would be, say, email. Our name might be email. And let's say that we had another one. So we got name, email. So first name, last name, email, password, and then terms. This one is called terms. Now, this is going to be pretty important that we stick to this same naming scheme. So I'm just going to kind of copy this back over into register, and we might call this so we'll have like an initial form value. We're going to not want to have anything in there. Just an empty string, and whatever the default is. So false, for an example. Let me see here. So this will be first name. Be last name. We'll do, we'll say password. Name is not going to be password. So now we also don't want this to be visible. So we're going to have a type of password here. And then terms and condition isn't going to be a type of text. It's going to be a type of a checkbox. And lastly, we probably want some sort of a button, a submit button. Sounds good. Or register me. All right, so now we have the world's ugliest form. It sort of works. I guess we could probably make this so that they're display flex and then column if we want to. So yeah, so let's do that. So we're going to do a data here we go, form. So we'll go into our CSS and do another one. So data style, how generic, and display flex, and we'll do flex direction column. Refresh. That didn't do anything. Oh, did I put that on the section or the form? Oops, I need to put that on the form. My bad. There. That looks horrible, but it's better than it was. Yeah, so we now have a form that looks like it was made in the 1990s by me, when I was still under 18 even. So let's see. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to continue to mess with that for right now. We were talking about passing down props. If I go back over here to console, you can see we've got this add to my store as a function. And let's go ahead and destructure that. Or my state. Stop tag, state. Yeah. Add to my state is equal to props. So let's get the basic form where it's actually working. We're not worried about yep validation or anything else. So we're going to need some sort of a change handler for this. So so the change handler is going to take an event, which I'm just going to call E to prevent myself from getting carpal tunnel today. And we're going to console log E. And we're going to put this in here. So we're going to start with our email. So we're going to do on change. We're going to break out of JSX mode into JS and do change handler. We're not going to invoke it. We're not going to do anything fancy with it. Just run the change handler. I'll refresh, and I'm just going to type in the letter H. So you can see that your event here that we're console logging is being passed into the change handler, and I'm console logging it. And it says synthetic base event. Congratulations, you have confused 99% of the world. So you may hear like, event.target. So if I do target and I open this up, you'll notice it's an input. If I double click on it, it goes back over here to elements, and it goes to this input here. So input name is email, type is text. So we know that kind of works, so I guess I could probably, start putting this on everything else. So we don't need it on the submit. We'll handle that here in a little bit. So we've got a change handler, we've got a name, we've got a type. Still no state to hold any of this stuff, but you know, I can save this, go back over into console, and I'm going to refresh, and we're just going to type in a letter into password. So I've got my event here, synthetic base event, dot target is an input, dot value, I hit the letter D. You know, what if I did another one of these? So let's go back over here. So I just hit another key in here, and let's open it up and see what key I touched. I didn't even pay attention to what I touched. It's not R, I used the other hand. So I go e.target.value again. I guess I typed a J. And if I go and scroll down to wherever it says name, this could take a little while, you'll notice that it's the password name. So if you ever hear event.target.whatever, event.target is just this form. The .name is coming from, in this case, .name is this. You can even do .type, even more scrolling. No. Where is T? HIJKLMNO. Oh, it keeps going. There's a dot. I'm like, wait a second. Where is type? Type is password. So all of these, you know, event.target.type even is in here, right? So like if I did the checkbox, it would be event.target.type is checkbox. So now we're getting a console log event. So let's go ahead and make an event handler for this. So what I might do is I might do a const and do name, value, and type. Those are the three that I think would probably be useful here, because we might want to know that it's a password type or it's a checkbox type, right? And we could just destructure those from e.target because we know that it's e.target.name, e.target.value, e.target.type. So if I console log name, value, and type, let's get rid of the event handler version of that. And refresh. Then I can type in the password field the letter S. So you can see it's password, that's the name. The value is S and the type is password. Or if I go up to email address, I do W, email, W, and it's a text field. If I click on terms and conditions, it's terms on, well, that's weird. Value probably isn't what we want. Checkbox. We'll have to look at that a little bit. And if you notice, I turned it off and it still says that it's on. So I guess value probably isn't a good one for checkbox. So that'll come in handy later. So what we now need is state. We need some way of holding this information in something other than the screen, or else we're not going to be getting anywhere with this. So we're going to go in and do a I can spell today, geez. Oops, from. Been doing too much of you at my morning job. So now we have use state. We probably want to have some sort of a form value of some sort. Here, well, I want to put this here. What do you guys think? Form, set form?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to pull up some notes just to make sure I'm doing stuff a little bit consistently with what I've done before, because I don't want to be doing this for like 5 hours. And we're going to do use state. And we're going to put in our initial form values. So we now know what our form values are supposed to look like. We're on the register. We're trying to figure out if these values are there. So we've got our form and set form. Down here, if we do like say form.id, we don't really need to know what form.id is. Probably need to just get rid of ID. That's probably a good idea because the ID is going to be set for us. So form dot say email. So if we go here to our email, you'll notice that if I go in here and I do value and I equal this to form.email, I save this, and I start to just kind of type in letters. You'll notice that nothing goes in this box anymore, but it's still giving us the value of what was in there. So what we haven't done is we haven't modified our form data. So it's just grabbing that information and it's setting it to whatever form is every time we type, which in this case is an empty string. So, but if we update that string with something else, like, so our form is an object. Oops, sorry. We want to spread our form because we want to have all of the information that was in that form before. We want to overwrite whatever was in it with our name value pair. So you could just do name here, but it's not going to work. It's going to be erroring out in value. What you need to do is you need to wrap this in square brackets. And this is going to take the string value of name, the actual value, not anything else, and it's going to put it inside of this as a key instead of instead of using you know, the actual word name. You could actually put it in here as name, and it would literally be called name, or you know, James. It's like that. But if you put it in the square brackets in name, it's going to take the value of name and insert it here. So in this case here, if I type something in email, it's going to be email and then whatever the value is from the target. So if I save this, I should be able to go over here. Let's refresh so we don't have anything and do this as a test. And you'll see that it's actually putting out everything here. It says email, this is a test, and it's a text box. So our email is this is a test. Let's see. Yep. So this should work on everything but the checkbox. So super high performance password. Password, password, password. I wonder what I typed in. Oh. Editing? Come on, no. Testing. So you can see that all this stuff in state is really easy to read. So I've never understood why you'd want it like that unless somebody was looking over your shoulder at your password. But when I click on this terms and conditions, you'll notice it stays on, no matter if it's on or off. So let's work on getting the checkbox working next. So if you notice on the checkbox, we have a type of checkbox. This is how we're going to be able to tell what the value needs to be. So in my checkbox, I'm going to want to do something called checked instead of value. And we're going to do form dot, what was it, terms? Yeah. So this form dot terms is going to be whether or not it's checked or not. So I can save this, refresh. You'll notice it's staying checked. It's not modifying anything. What we need to do is we need to determine inside of our, what do you call it? Our change handler is we're going to need to, where is it? We're going to need to determine what value is. So what we might do, let me just remove this console log right quick, is we might do value is equal to actually, no, it's e.target.type. So type, and we want to see if this is equal to checkbox. So we're literally looking at e.target.type here, and we're seeing if this is what it says. So type is equal to checkbox. So now if it is, we're going to use the checked value. So we can add another one called checked. If it's not, we're going to use value. So we're overriding our value here with either checked or value. Let's see if this works. Oh, I do need to put this back in because we want to actually see what's there. So refresh. If I check this box, oh boy, that didn't work. Assignment to a constant variable. Whoops. We're going to do let. Actually, const. We're going to take value out of here. And I'm going to do where did that go? Yeah, minimized it. So we've got console log name, value, and type. So if I save this and let's inspect. Oh, I've got it in two separate places. All right. Go back to register. And if I check this box, you'll notice terms true checkbox. If I check it again, it'll go back to false. So true, false, true, false, true, false. And it's toggling it to whatever the value is of checked. So when check changes to true, it updates the state. When it checks it to false, it updates the state again. And then it sets the form accordingly. So by doing it this way, you know, in, well, 3 lines, if you don't have a console log in there, in 3 lines, you've got a change handler that will take any type of input that you can throw at it, and it'll set it. You know, it could be a date, it could be pretty much anything. So long as it's in a form, it'll take it. 99% sure on that. I'm sure there's some form that I haven't thought of, but still, but in general, this will work for everything. So now we need to have something called a submit handler because we want to be able to send this to our state, right? So if we've got a new variable called submit handler with a function on it, that function needs to be able to take an event, just like what happened before. Now, one of the weird things about forms is that when you have a form with a submit button, it's going to want to put all of your data on this line up here. I'll give you an example right quick. If we just run the submit button the way that it is. So I'll do a nice email. Oh, sorry, cannot access value. Hold on, I broke something. Oh, this is here we go. Probably should have just turned that into a let. Refresh. I have unbroken the code. So nice email at email.com. And terms and conditions. So now when I click on this register me, watch what happens up here on this after register. Ooh, it refreshed the page. And it put all of this stuff on this line, including my password of testing. Well, that can't be good. That's just got logged to some server somewhere. It got sent plain text over the internet. That's horrible. Who wants to do that? You better not use testing ever again. Go and change all your passwords that use that, right? So what we want to do is on this form, we're going to do an on submit on the form, not the button. On the submit handler. And we're going to go and do an prevent default. So now what prevent default does is it prevents the browser from doing that stupid default behavior where it takes all of your form data and sticks it up here and then refreshes the page hoping that you pick it up as a parameter. Horrible, horrible, horrible. That's a relic from the 1990s right there when everybody trusted everybody. So we'll just do an email. So this is a test. If I hit register me, notice how it didn't put anything up here. Didn't put my password. Didn't do anything. It's also not doing anything at all. But what I might do is not console log. Console log, not console. And we might do a form. Sounds like a good idea, right? So if I refresh, I click on register me, now it's console logging this. So we get an email, this is a test, this is another test, the other ones are blank, terms are false. Yeah, so we have a submit handler that likely will work. I'm going to get rid of that console log up here because we don't need any more. And so what we might do is just call add to my state and then pass in form. That's it. So let's refresh the page. Let's go to users. So we got Brian and Joe. Let's do a register. So this will be and we'll do Buzz Lightyear, Buzz at thingin.net. Oh, sorry, that was email. I'm already messing that up. So buzz@minion.net. This is Buzz Lightyear. And password is Slim, I guess. And we'll go ahead and check the box because why not? So if I click on register me, it says add to my state is not a function. Why? Should be. Did I not pass it down? I could have sworn I passed it down. Yeah, it is. I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way by using props.
Wait, shouldn't it be called set my state instead of add to my state in the register.jsx?
No, because I made a new function inside of app.js called add to my state instead of set my state.
But we
So-
passed it through as set my state in app.jsx, like the, or no, never mind. I passed, yeah.
Yeah, so we did users that way because all we're doing is looking at it. So add to my state. I'm not even caring exactly what state's there. I think the problem is that when I destructured this, I didn't like it. It's been a little while since I've had to do that. So I'm just gonna pretend I didn't do that. And I'm just gonna do props dot, because I don't feel like troubleshooting that for 30 minutes. All right, so if I do register me, so now it says rendered app. So something has changed because it re-rendered the app. So if I go back over here to users, we should have Buzz Lightyear. Yeah, we've got Buzz Lightyear there. Cool. Okay, so now we've got a login form that is submitting to state. Still isn't particularly great. Let's add in a little axios to get some better information, because like if we were to look at this information for Buzz Lightyear, there's really not like an ID or anything else that we can go to. So let's add axios. So we're going to do npmi axios, and we're going to do npm run start. Oops. All right, and then we also need to have a unique key prop or whatever, but whatever, we'll do that right quick. I'm just going to do index because I don't care right now. It's not super important. Key equals, we'll say user.
I think it just needs to be index in the curlies.
Yeah, you just need to have index in there, but I'm trying to make it slightly more unique. If you have everything starting at 0, it does weird things eventually. Like let's say that you're on a large project and everybody is using index for that instead of something that's unique. Eventually somebody is trying to add something to their cart and they just added 50 things to their cart.
See, gotcha.
So you want to have something unique, and usually we don't do it with index, but this is unit 1. We've been doing this for 3 weeks. This is fine. Next unit, they can get more picky with it. So that should get rid of that error. Okay, cool. So my state only has 2 things. We'll register. We'll just put in some random characters. And yes to terms and conditions, register me, and users now has however you pronounce that. Okay, so we know that flow works. We've got the no more errors over here. Let's get rid of users for right now because it's good enough the way it is. So in our the question is, where do you want that information to be? Usually, where do you want your Axios call to be? And usually you want that as close to the form as you can get. And this submit handler here, I'm just going to leave that like that. We're going to do an axios.post. And does anybody remember the recres ID? It's like https://recres.in or something /users. I always forget.
I can find it real quick.
Yeah, it's recres.in, and I think it's API users. Yeah, API users. Okay, cool. So this is going to be expecting, post takes 2 arguments. The first one is where you want to go. And the second one is what do you want to send in there? In this specific case, we want to send in our form data. So there's 2 ways of doing it. You can get your response back from there, or you can get it back from right here by doing a then. I personally prefer then. Yeah, come on. We'll console log our results. So when we submit, it's going to do an Axios post. It's going to do a then, and we're going to see what comes from the result. Don't really care about errors right now because reasons. So we're just something like this, something like this, something like that. And then terms and conditions. And this is going to console log our result. So if I do register me, you'll notice that we get res.data. It should be pretty common. It's almost always res.data is the stuff you're looking for. If you'll notice, this gave us an object at res.data. It gives us some more information. Created at, email, first name, ID, last name, password, terms. True. So all of this is there, but if you notice, it gave us an ID. That ID is 30. So that's kind of nice. Chances of us having two 30s are pretty low, or 2 29s or 2 zeros are extremely low. So if we just want res.data, let me save it one more time. We're not going to refresh. And I submit the same information. So we've got res.data as an object. You can see it because it's got a little curly brackets and everything. So instead of console logging res.data, we could do props add to my state res.data, like so. So if I go register me, notice how it said rendered app. So something's changed on the page. And if I go back over to users, you can see we've got is a very nice name. And if I open one of these up, you can see our state has added a thing that has the object that came back from our rec res. So we have successfully sent it to add to my state, whatever came back from here. And if I go back over to add, all we're doing is we're taking the object that came back and we're setting it into the array that has my state in there, and the new person shows up on the bottom. So what if I wanted the new person up at the top? So we could do new person, comma, and then put in my state. So my state hasn't changed yet, but we're going to at the next render. So we'll save this. We'll go back over here to register, and we'll do testing, register me. Now, if I go over here to users, we got this is a test, testing is our first one. So all I did was put new person here and my state there. So got to get used to this pattern. You're going to use it a lot. That spread syntax is fantastically good. All right, so now what happens if we refresh the page? This isn't persistent. It's not coming from anywhere. I just went back to whatever was our default state, which is just me and Joseph Palmer. So we'll save our register because I don't remember us saving it. And so there's some other minor problems here. Is one, whenever I fill this out, it doesn't clear out the form and it doesn't forward us to users. So those are two things that I want it to do. So one of the things, if we wanted to change the form, so if this thing succeeded, it's going to be in the dot then. So we can clear the form in the dot then. So we just do set form with initial form values, and it'll reset the form to this, its initial state. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to do something called use history. Oh, and that's it's not a default export, so we need to wrap it. It's just an export. I'll make these prettier because that's what habits start to give you. So we've got not history, it's use history. So now use history is a function that we are going to be getting back a history object or array. I always forget what it is exactly. So let's do const history, and we're going to equal this to use history, and we're going to invoke it. So let's look at what history says. So history apparently is an object that has stuff in it. So there's a action pop, block, go back, forward, length is 50. Okay. So go back. I don't know what that is. Go forward. I guess it can go forward. There's a listener. Oh, push. We've done push before. So what if we were to do something like history.push and say that we wanted to go to the users route. So if we go back over to app, we wanted to go from our register, which is this /register. We wanted to go to the /users link right here. And then it's going to render users. So let's see what that does. So this is going to go through. It's going to be posting to Axios, to RecRes with our form data. It's going to return our form data with some ID and whatever else. And then it's going to add this to my state over on app, which is going to update the list. After that's done, it's going to set the form to nothing, and it's going to go to users. So let's do Jimmy Bobob at countrywestern.com. And his password is guitar. Terms and conditions, yep. Register me. So if I click this, it should clear the form and go to users. Okay, so it went there. Jimmy Bobob's on top. And if I go back over to register, there's nothing here. And I should be able to go back and forth as long as I'm using these links and don't go up here. Okay, so Any questions? I know that we've been going for a little bit. Then we get to go into yup, and then Cypress, I swear it doesn't take this long.
How did you use the history hook again?
Yeah, so I import it. Use history from React Router DOM. That's the most important thing. If you don't have use history, you can't do anything. The second thing that I did is I invoked use history, and whatever use history returns, I saved as a variable. We don't have to console log history. From there, when we know that the Axios has happened, we just push. So history.push, push is a function, and we're just putting in whatever route we want to go to. And it automatically navigates to that.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, so without me going into super huge amounts of detail, we're going to do some yup. And pretty much I'm going to show you the pattern for doing errors. I think that we've already covered error messages enough. Does anybody want me to do error messages while we're at it, or?
I would kind of like to go over error messages.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely do that. So now what I need to do is I need to stop our server again and install yup. So npm I yup. And again, if you don't know if you've got yup installed, you just go in here to your package JSON, look under dependencies. If you've got yup there, then you have yup. You can access it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to want to import everything from yup. Nope, that needs to be in quotes. No, sorry, import all as yup from yup. I was like, wait a second, that's underlined. So what this is going to do is it's going to call everything that is exported from yup. Oh, it's going to call it yup. Makes it a lot easier to do it. This variable here, you could call it anything. You could call it George. It doesn't really matter. The next thing that we're interested in doing is we want a schema. So the schema needs to match what you're putting in here. So I'm just going to copy our initial form values. And I'm just going to call it form schema. This is your word, not mine. Not you, yep. So we're going to make a new yup object. Object is a function. We're going to add a shape to that. The shape is going to be an object. And inside of this object is not another object. Sorry, my bad. I picked the wrong things. Let me detab that a little bit. And each one of these is going to be our fields that you would expect to see in the form. So our first key value pair is going to be email. We're going to expect this to be a string. So we're going to do yup string. And there are ways of checking. I'm just going to do length for right now. So we're going to do min. There are ways of checking email. I'm going to have to demur on that for right now because I can't remember how to do it off the top of my head. And I don't know if you guys want to be here all night long. We might come back to it and put a regex in there. But we're just going to say this, we want it to be a minimum of 4 characters. And we're going to put some sort of an error message. So this is where our error messages are defined, is in our schema. And kind of the same thing for our first name, last name, And password, we'll say the password minimum of 8 since that seems to be pretty common. First name, I've known people named Bo. So yeah, we'll do 2 for the last name as well. But this will be first name is required. We'll do last name is required. And password is required. So now here is the weird one that a lot of people run into is this is a Boolean because it's true or false. So we need to do a yup.bool. And this is going to be a one of. So now what one of does is it takes an array of things that it could be, and we put when it's okay. So if it is true, then it doesn't put the error message in. If it is false, then it's going to say, please accept the terms. Mind you, I don't have a link for the terms, but you know, terms and conditions, everybody knows. Nobody wants to read it anyway, right? Nobody even laughed.
Can you, if you can, off the top of your head, I was just curious about this, like for passwords where, you know, you need to contain at least one number and at least a.
Yeah, so that would be a regex. That's going to be the same thing with email. So email requires an @ symbol and a dot with some number of characters after the dot. And so there's different ways of doing that with yup. I just can't remember off the top of my head.
It's okay. I was just curious if it was a quick thing.
So like if you do regex email string, how can I validate an email address using regular expressions? You'll find somebody with this one. So you would basically copy and paste this in there.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
So that's for an email. And then there's other more complicated ones for passwords and things like that. So for it's way out of scope for like an hour-long project.
Sure.
But for right now, min is fine. Doing regex, it's just basically a one of, and it needs to match a specific string. So I guess you could probably try this. We'll do a one of, this will be an array, and then I think you can just grab this. You may have to put it in slashes, backslashes, yeah, something like that. I think that's not valid. It doesn't like it. Let's get rid of that. Maybe it was /. I always forget. But yeah, it would look something like that. Okay, yeah, that looked like that actually worked. So it's one of, and it needs to match this. So if this expression works, then it won't show the error. So same thing with passwords. There's lots of different regex things. I usually like to get a cat personally and have them type on the keyboard for me. And that's how I usually get my best regex. I don't know what it means. I studied it. I still don't know what it means. So I think I'm probably just gonna go back to min 4 for right now, just to make it so I'm not overcomplicating anything. It'll also be a lot easier for me to test. But yeah, if I was going for a professional, highly secured website thing, then yeah. You can also tack on like another one, like one of, and I think there's also a not one of, let me see. Let's see here. So like if you wanted to put in like a list of email addresses or something, I think you can actually just do a one of, and then do like an exclamation point like that, and then say like yeah. You could just add in like pass down props of every single email address that you have and just stick it in right here. You could say something like, we'll say registered, which is a more important one, but we'll just use mine and pretend nobody else is in there because I'm being lazy. So let's see here. Okay, so we've got a schema that should be good. 99% sure it should be good. I could be wrong. Got rid of. Okay, so let's do. Let's see. I'm trying to think. We're probably going to want to. At this point, we probably want to make it so you can't click the submit button if those are not valid. I think probably what I'm going to do is just take another break because we've been going for about an hour. You guys want to meet back here in 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, sure.
I'll see you guys here in 5.
Can you click your VS Code?
Okay, I'll leave everybody.
I'm here.
Excellent. All right, so I got a chance to drink a little bit of water. Refresh. Make sure this hasn't exploded. Oh yeah, it has exploded. We haven't started this again. So we've got yup installed. Let's make sure this boots. Okay, cool. So it's running. That's nice. So now we need to be able to validate what is in this this object. So we also want to disable that button by default. So let's go ahead and disable the button, and then we can tell when it's working when it doesn't disable. So we're going to do another slice of state. And this is just going to be a nice, easy use state. And this use state is going to be true by default, because true says that it is disabled. So disabled is equal to true says that it's going to show up as disabled. So if we go down here to our button, we can just do disabled equals break out of JSX into JS, and we can put in disabled, the value that we just made in state. So if I save this, did I blow that up? Enums for each is not. Hey, I didn't do anything to you. Why'd you blow up?
It's when you added that the one of email situation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was me trying to get fancy. As I told you.
It is one of our stretches, which I didn't get, but yeah.
Yeah, you can. There's also ways of doing it with a filter. If it is that, then you can always push to your error stack, and there's all kinds of ways of doing it. There's not one way to rule them all or anything. It's not the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, blindfold the eagles and fly in, dump the ring. Totally would have saved like 2 books. I'm so totally disappointed. So anyway, so we've got disabled. So this button is now disabled, and if we wanted to check to make sure that works, if we change this to false in our disabled, and I save that, then it's no longer disabled. So if I save this true and I inspect it, you can actually see that it has a word called disabled in here. So disabled equals true just means that it's going to be true here. So we refresh and go to console again, and we can try filling all this stuff out, and it doesn't matter because, well, it's not hooked up to anything. It's not validating anything. So what we might do is make a validator. So I'll just call it validate change because why not? That's usually what I call it. We're going to pass in a name and a value into here. And this is going to be called from our change handler here. So this is where it's going to get maybe not weird, but we're going to just put it right on top of our set form, and we're going to do a validate change, and we're going to pass in name and value. So our arguments are name and value, and they get turned into parameters up here called name and value. We're doing that just for consistency's sake. So yup has a function called reach, not react. So reach takes two parameters. The first thing is going to be your schema. The second thing that you want is the name that you want to check. So yup.reach says inside of form schema, I want to pick out name. So if we're an email, email is the name. So it's a name value pair or key value pair. And you could actually name this key if you wanted, just to make it a little easier. So key, email, it's going to try to run this. So when you do validate, you want the value, you're going to pass in the value into validate. And that is going to say, hey, I want to make sure that whatever came into this value matches this minimum of 4. If it does match the minimum of 4, we're going to run it then with a callback. Make that prettier. And what we need to do is, if it passes that that validation, we need to reset the error to be an empty string. So we're assuming that an error has already occurred, and we want to reset it to an empty string. The other thing that we need is we need errors. So let's do, let me put this where it makes more sense. We're going to put this underneath here. I didn't even think about that. We need errors. So and we're going to just have a very simple and this is going to be this object again, but we're not going to see, where did I put it? Right here. We're not going to have terms as false. We're going to have it as an empty string because this is an error message that's going to be going there. So what we can do is we can set errors. Now errors is an object. We want to spread our errors and then add in what's being changed. So in this case, you've got a key and a value, right? So we're replacing our key with whatever our value is, but because there is no error, because it's past the validation, we want to set the error as an empty string. So just going to copy this and paste it. And we're going to do a catch. So now catch will take a variable and pass it into the callback. We're just going to call it error. And everything else is exactly the same, except we're not wanting to have a string. We're wanting to do an error.errors. And we want the first value off of that errors array, because that's the latest one that was in there. So it, what was it? Was that slice or splice? I always forget which one is which, where it goes in the front of the array. Don't have to do it very much, but the error is always 0. Whatever the last error that happened is always going to be 0 whenever it does a validation. Any questions?
Not yet. Well,
Okay.
a lot, but not really.
But this is actually a pretty cool pattern where it says, hey, is it valid? Go to the then. If it's not valid, do the catch. And it's kind of it's a pretty way of doing it, in my opinion.
So it's setting errors to the yup errors that we put.
Yeah, so the this errors is going to be whatever came out of it. So like if we're an email and it was less than 4 characters long, it would say email is required.
Okay.
And if you go past 4 characters, then it's going to say, hey, it no longer has an error, because it's going to overwrite that with the string.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and save this. So this is the validation. And so what I might do is I'm probably going to go in here and get a use effect, because we're going to want to probably console log some of this stuff, and we're probably going to need it anyway to do the disabled button. So let's do a use effect. And use effect always takes 2 things. So it takes a callback and it takes a dependency array. So in this case, I'm going to do a dependency array of errors. And we're just going to console log the errors. So right now, if I refresh, you can see that we don't have any errors. If I do a T, email is a required, HIS, and as soon as we're at 4 characters, that error went away. So if I go to 3 characters, email is required, first name, email is required. Obviously, I've got some problems with my email is required errors. Yeah, so that's not working well. Oh, no, never mind. It does say that. So email is required, first name, last name, and password. And then if I check terms and then I uncheck it, it'll say, please accept the terms. So it won't say, please accept the terms until it's been checked and unchecked. So I don't know exactly. I guess you could probably put this in here. And that would probably get around that bug. So if we refresh, you can see we already have please accept the terms. And if I check this, it'll make it go away or come back. So I guess maybe that's probably the best way of doing it, is to have it in 2 separate places. Please accept the terms, you know, in 2 separate places. So this is your initial errors. So this is what's going to be displayed as you're using it. So let's make it so that it displays the errors. I think I'm going to put a little CSS in here so that the label is going to be a display flex. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, cool. Now it looks like we're on a phone. There. Now it really looks like we're on a phone. There, iPhone 5. I'm gonna make that a little larger. Okay, so register email, first name, last name, password, terms and condition. Cool. What if I were to just go ahead and put in a errors.email right here? Oh. Okay. So if you'll notice, by default, it says, please accept the terms. If I type in an email, and email is required. Password, there's 8. And I select the terms, so there's no more errors. So that's how you get your error messages to show up or come back. So if I go backspace on there, only 2 characters there and there. So you got email, email is required, first name is required, last name is required. And I guess you could probably just say is required now that I think about it. If we're doing the error messages like that. So it already says first name. There we go. Then if you want to make it prettier, you could probably wrap that like in a span or something. We're just going to do the top one in the span and color it. So, wrong key. All right, so we'll save that. I think that'll need to be in a p tag. I'm mumbling again, aren't I? All right, we're just going to do one of them like this. All right, so email is required. It's in a p tag. It has extra styling that I didn't want, but oh well. We're going to do label span. Or red, and then do 700, like that, something like that. So you can kind of see the pattern, and you could do that for all of them if you wanted. So if you start typing in your email, is required, is going to remain there until you're past 4 characters. So that's one way to style it. Any questions on error messages? Now we can get into the last easy part, the disabled button. This is the one that throws a lot of people because they don't realize that you need to use a use effect, because remember that when you update that form, it is going to change. It's going to change when you do a set form. It's going to change that specific render it's not going to change the form in that specific render. It's going to re-render the page with the new data. So that data is stale if you try to access it. So if you just try to do like a set disabled, with a form schema is valid or something inside of like your form change, it's going to be wrong. So the easiest way of doing it is let's see, not app, we went register. The easiest way to do it is to, so we're not worried about errors anymore, so I'll just reuse this one, is to grab your form in a use effect. There's other ways of doing this as well. This isn't like the huge best practice, but this is the easiest to understand. So form schema, and we're going to run is valid. So what is valid does is this is going to take in our form, and it's going to check against our schema whether the form is valid or not. This is going to return a promise with whether or not it's going to be enabled or not. So we're just going to say the button is enabled. So what we're going to do is we're going to set disabled as the opposite of enabled. So if it is valid, it should be enabled, which means that disabled shouldn't be there. So they're diametrically opposed. If you watched last week, I ran into the exact same thing when I was trying to do a next and previous button. I was completely backwards on my logic. So if I set my disabled button like this, and I type in an email, and I do Brian, hey, password, and then I click on this terms and conditions, this register me should appear. If I uncheck it, it disappears. And now I can go to register me. And it puts Brian Haig at thisisaTest.com. So now I have 2 user accounts like that. So what I'm going to do next is I want to test that this does what I expect it to do. So whenever you test something, you're going to test it as if you just came to the home page. So let's give the home page something a little bit more unique than home. We're going to say, please don't trust this page. Yes, I can't be more explicit than that. Register sounds fine. Login sounds fine. First user, I guess that's fine. We still haven't gone in and done any parameters yet, but that'll be kind of extra credit because I don't think that this test has parameters, but it is something very nice to know. Okay, so I'm going to grab a terminal for this. And if you notice, we're in projects Bloom Unit 2 5.26.22. So this is the root directory of everything. So I've got a public, source, package JSON, the whole works. This is where you're going to want to do your Cypress install. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do npx Cypress open. So I already have Cypress installed. This should also install it if it's not installed. So when I do this, it's going to make a new folder called Cypress. It should show up here.
Is Cypress all we have left?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll probably still end up doing some extra if anybody's willing to go for a little bit longer, but this probably won't take more than like 20 minutes to cover Cypress because it's relatively easy. This is the thing that everybody freaks out about, and I've never understood why, especially once you know the Konami code of data test ID. It makes things so much nicer.
I'll be back for the extra.
And now we're just waiting for Cypress to do its thing. Okay, so Cypress has done its thing. It has opened up a little window over here on the other side of my screen. I'm just going to move that over because it's not super important because we haven't really written any tests. But if you notice, now we have a Cypress folder. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do an integration test. So I'm just going to do a new file, and we're going to call this loginspec.js. So we're going to do a sanity check. So it's so whenever you have like an it or a describe or whatever, a describe is considered a suite of tests, and it is an individual test. So an it is going to take a string, which gives a description of what it's doing, and a function of, well, what it needs to get done. So we're going to do an expect, and somebody give me 2 numbers. Come off mute and give me 2 numbers. Nobody wants to come off mute. Say it again.
7 and 3.
Okay, so 7 plus 3, and we're gonna expect that to be, and that's 11. No, it's 10. Sorry. I was thinking 8 plus 3 or for whatever reason. So now if I save this, I bring this awesome little tool over, and we go to the bottom here where it says loginspec.js. So now what that did was that opened it up on my other gigantic monitor. So the invalid chai property to be, did I mean to? No, I did not mean to. Oh, no, it's not to be. Geez, I'm thinking of jest. To equal. There we go. Maybe I should bring up some notes on this. Yeah, I'm gonna go through this and see if I can fumble through Cypress because I've been doing jest testing all day, and yeah. So all right. So now when you look at this one is saying expected 10 to equal 10. Congratulations. We now know that it's not broken and it tests. So I'm gonna just move that to the side because I don't think I want to have 50 things open. Actually, we can just change places with this one. Here we go. All right, so now we've got our tests open. So what I want to do is I want to make a test suite. And I'm going to check individual little tiny problems at a time. So we're going to start with a describe. And we're going to say, visit the insecure forum. Okay, so this is going to visit the insecure horrible website. We're going to run a function. Inside of this function, we're going to do a before each because we want it to visit the page after every test. So we're going to do a Cypress dot not crypto. cypress.visit. And we're going to want to take our localhost 3000, copy it and paste it directly in. So this is literally what's running back here in this, this lovely web server. So if you don't have a web server running, it's not going to work. So let's put this into the before each. So a before each is just a function that takes a callback. So move that visit up like that. So I save that. Now we have a describe. And it says visit the insecure horrible website. And you'll notice that it has a little tiny arrow thing. Let me see if I can make that bigger. There we go. So this little arrow, you can open it and close it. Test body, you can open and close, sanity check, whatever. It just allows you to group them by similar concepts. So let's do another it. Visiting the website works. So this is kind of like another little sanity check just to make sure that it does visit the website. And so what you might do is a sci.contain. Sorry, it contains. And we're going to grab please don't trust this page. Okay, so now when I save this, this is going to run the tests. It's going to visit the website. And visiting the website says, 1, it visited the website. 2, it contains, please don't trust this page. So we know that we're at the right place because, well, that's what we put on our homepage. So that's, you know, one good way of doing it. You can also use a selector and see if it exists and things like that, but contains is a nice, easy way of doing it. So if you'll remember back, we also did, I'm going to make this a little longer so I can. We did these data test IDs, and we want to do this data test ID register, right? I'm just going to copy that. So I wanted to be able to click on this register link and go to the next page. So we're going to throw in another it. And we'll say can enter data into register form and click submit. So that's a nice one. So this would be a nice long workflow. So we have that data test ID register. So let's do const, and we'll say register link. And if we do a sci.get again, so what we can do is we can wrap this with a string, and then we can put in our square brackets around this. Oops. Register link, it needs to be equal to sci.get. So whatever this gets as a selector is going to be stored into register link. So the next thing that we can do is we can see if it exists. So we can expect register link to exist. And we can also click on it. So we can see here, it goes to there. It expected this to exist, and it got the register here. So now what we can do is click on it. So we'll do. Now what this is going to do, if I save this, you're going to notice that it's no longer on. Oh, that's frustrating. I can't make that any. Oh, there we go. All right. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And if you watch the test, you'll notice that we're now on the form page because it clicked on the register link. So now we probably want to make sure that this has something that says maybe terms and conditions. So like, instead of please don't trust this page, we might say Cypress contains terms and conditions. So if I save this, we look at this, it's visiting the page. It is getting that, it's clicking on that. And I know that's like microscopic, but it then goes to a new URL. It says so right here. New URL, and it asks if it contains terms and conditions, which it does. So next thing that we want to do is let's go back over here to our register page and add some cheat codes. So we're going to do that data test ID. We're just going to set this to okay. So now we should be able to get every single one of these. So we're going to have email. We're just going to call this one first, last, password, terms, and data test ID button. Sounds good because there's only one button on the page. So if I save this, it's going to retest. It's going to pass all the tests. And we're going to do a const, and we'll say email. And if you'll notice, you can wrap this in a string literal if you want, and it works just as well. And I'm just going to copy this. Let me just delete that because we have a bunch of these things to select. So we got email, first name, last name, password, and terms, right? And the button. So email, first, last, password, terms, and button. Button. No, there we go. So we'll do button, terms, password. Okay. So we're just going to make sure that all that didn't break anything. So we have selectors. It actually says that we can get all of these here. I'm not worried about checking to see if they exist or anything. And now that we have them saved as something, we can start typing in them. So if we do something like email.type, and we do, we'll do Buzz Lightyear first. Oops, first type. And we'll do, say, Buzz. We'll do Buzz Lightyear at and like that. Last type. Sorry, Lightyear. It's password. And we will click on terms. So terms.click. And then what we can do is we could do button. See, now the button's a weird one. The button, we want to see if it's disabled. So for us to be able to do that, we need to turn that into a callback. That's one of the weird ones. So what we've done here is instead of it being a selector, we've turned it into a function. We can invoke this function and we can do should and then not be disabled. So what this is doing is after you have all of these things filled in and this is clicked, the button should no longer be disabled. So, and technically we could start out with something like, oh, come on now. Should be disabled on this button. So what we're doing is we're seeing if we cannot click that button. Let me just save that and see if it explodes. Oh, it exploded. So Buzz Lightyear at Pixar timed out. It did not like type. Let me see, email.
I think I remember something about changing like emails type to just text. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I did have a question about that later.
I think I want to see if I can chain this. Maybe that's the way I'm going to do it instead of turning it into a variable, since I'm not going to be using it again. Let me just see if that allows me to do, if I just do it directly on it, because I think that we would have to do it in a, yeah, see, didn't like that. Timeout failed because this element is disabled. I don't think so. Here, let me see. I didn't read that error before. Let me save that. Huh. I just. Yeah, see, it doesn't like that. So, okay, so expected button not to be disabled, but it says that it is disabled. Okay, dude, that is just like really weird. Let me just see. I'm just going to take this out because that should be working and I don't know why it isn't. Let me see. I have broken everything. See, then that is saying that its element is disabled. Dude, that should not be disabled. Button test ID. See, oh, okay. But it shouldn't be grabbing the button. Okay. Something weird was going on with that button. So let me put that back in as a function and see what's going on. Okay, dude, that is just really odd. Okay, so I'm not going to be checking to see if it's disabled or not. I just want to click on the stupid thing. So we're going to run the function. So and .click and see if it works, because that's just weird. Maybe I've been stuck in. Dude, that is weird. I clicked on the terms and conditions. This has to be something where I need to do something else. Maybe we should move that terms and conditions up higher. It's got to be some sort of a race condition. Hmm. Wait a second. I'm going to refactor this like this just to see what happens. Because this should be working with air quotes. We should have to do anything there. Just gonna do a flip. Yeah. Then it goes to a new URL. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that the problem was is I needed to make all of these if I'm going to do it this way. I would have to turn those all into a function, because otherwise it only gets it one time. If you turn it into a function, you can get it as many times as you want. So what we might do is I want to make this thing work the way that it's supposed to. So what we might do is button dot oh, sorry, we got to invoke button. Good. See if that breaks it first. Okay, so that doesn't. So let's make it so. Come on. Then this should not be disabled. Okay, cool. So if I open this back up, goes to the local host. It gets the register button, clicks on it, goes to a new URL. That new URL contains terms and conditions. Data test ID is gotten. It expects it to be disabled, which is true. It clicks on the terms and conditions. It then types into the email, Buzz Lightyear at Pixar. It then types in Buzz Lightyear, password. And then it checks the button again to see if it's not disabled. And then it clicks on the button. And then it posts the information to RecRes. And then it goes to a new URL. So let's check the new URL right quick. So if you notice, it doesn't have it in there just for reasons, but let's go back over here and do a contains next. And instead of terms and conditions, let's see if it's got a Buzz Lightyear in there. Okay, cool. So if we go to the next page, it shows Buzz Lightyear at Pixar.com. Okay, so
Good.
that was messy. Okay, so any questions? I think that you're the last one standing.
I not like my brain's kind of like mush after all of that, but
Yes, it's 3 hours solid.
I know it's crazy. Oh,
You think my brain's mush?
well, I bet.
Uh,
I'm thinking well, one problem I had is that on my homework at least was that my information that I typed into the box initially, like on my website that pulled up on my Chrome, ended up becoming the default text in there. I don't know. I don't know if you know anything. I was just thinking about.
so if it's the default text, well, in a test, do you have that before each where it clears out and it visits the website again?
Oh, maybe that's what my problem was.
Yeah. So each one of these tests should be its own visit. So the first one, I'm just seeing if it visits. It's great. Second one, well, the first one is literally just seeing if we go to the home page. The second one, I'm doing all of this stuff in it to make sure that flow works, because we're integrating in to see if you can go from one to the next to the next. I just want to see that it will go to, the next page.
Okay. Cool. Are you
So,
guys?
yeah, so that's probably where the problem was, is if you weren't resetting from one it to the next, then it's going to continue to have that same information.
Interesting. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'll definitely use that on my homework and
Okay.
do that.
So I think that's probably, I don't know, I think that's probably a pretty good session, considering it went 3 hours. I can still push longer if you want more details.
maybe thinking. So I know that you can set your state in either the form.js or the app.js.
Mhm.
On this one, we did it on the form, right?
So we have state in both places. So we
Okay.
have app.js is the state that needs to communicate to the rest of the system, where register.jsx has state that has to do with this registration form.
Okay. Okay, so the one, gotcha. So before that's just like our initial information.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the app.js, you know, if we got rid of all of this stuff, there just wouldn't be anything interesting on. There wouldn't be anything interesting on to look at when we rendered the users page.
Yeah, it would just be blank.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like my homework just became a total mess in the end.
Yeah, that's how it usually works.
Yeah.
That's how it happened to me as well. So not you got to remember that I went through the exact same thing you did. And the difference is that I've been doing it longer.
Yeah.
And I still messed it up a little bit.
Heard. So I don't know. Do you think it would be a waste of my time to just restart my project?
Yeah, you could restart it. Have you already pushed up anything to your GitHub?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me stop recording.